got so many people putting their city, state. Oh, Roma says he can hear you. So can Estella. That's perfect. Okay. Hey, we made it. Thank you, everybody, for that. We're working with a new webinar software today. So, we're working out the kinks, but we've seemed to got it handled. So that's perfect. Thanks to everybody for sharing where you're from. That was awesome. We're going to go ahead and get started now. Angie, if you could start off telling us a little bit about the FICPA. And for those of you that aren't in Florida, this will apply to most other states, but it's really important to get involved with your local state CPA society. I recommend that to everybody that I work with. It's a huge part of not only finding your first job, but getting involved in the new profession that you're joining. So Angie, tell us a little bit about the FICPA for students and young professionals.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Andrew, for helping set this up for our students today. I'm Angie Brooke. I'm the Emerging Professional Senior Manager at the Florida Institute of CPAs in Tallahassee. And also on the webinar, I don't know if you guys will be able to see or hear her, is Jennifer Allen. She is our Emerging Professionals Manager at the FICPA, and we both handle student and young CPA initiatives there. So if you're wondering what the FICPA is we're the premier professional association for CPAs in the state of Florida. And all that really is we are a membership-based association, and we handle various things on behalf of the accounting profession. We handle continuing education, so that once you all pass your CPA exam and become CPAs, you'll have to maintain continuing education. We provide continuing education for CPAs. We have Legislative Affairs Department who handles lobbying on behalf of the profession, so that we make sure that there's no laws that are passed that would negatively impact our members in the state of Florida and their CPA licensure. We have a peer review department that handles mandatory peer reviews. In the state of Florida, we have mandatory peer review. Not every state has that. But that is something we do here. We have a student and YCPA initiatives that we handle there. We do student events and young CPA activities to help, you guys identify accounting careers, help you pass the CPA exam, and then once you've done all those things, to kind of support you on your path as a CPA. We have 27 chapters across the state who do activities in their local area. They do continuing education, community service projects, a variety of different things. We also have an educational foundation. Our educational foundation provides $275,000 in scholarships to fourth and fifth year accounting students across the state. So we're really proud of that endeavor that we promote as well as part of our association. Now, I realize quite a few of you all are not from Florida, and I want you all to, even though you're not from Florida, to go online and look for your state society that represents the accounting profession in your state. Depending on where you are, the name may be different than ours. Ours is the Florida Institute of CPAs, but usually it's like the Texas Society of CPAs or the Massachusetts Society of CPAs. They all do very similar things as to what we do in Florida, but they may have, their membership may be a little bit different as to how they handle students and YCPAs, but either way, it's really important that you get active in your local association. It helps you guys to build your network. It'll help you, when you're looking for a job or even looking for clients, all of those things that you'll be facing here in the near future. It looks like my sound is not coming through good. I'm hearing people saying that.
Yeah, we are having a little bit, it is coming through a little scratchy on your end, but I think we are getting most of it. And just, so everybody knows, there will be a recording of this afterwards. So if anybody does have some audio issues or some video issues, don't worry about it. I'll make sure you get an email with the full video so you will be able to watch everything.
Let me do this. If you guys can give me just 1 second, let me grab some earbuds with a microphone and see if that helps.
Okay, great. Yeah, and in the meantime, guys, I did put a link in the chat window there where you can find your state CPA society. And just so you know, as we go through this webinar, I'm about to get into this content, a lot of information here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, how I passed the exam, and then how I would do it if I was going through it again. And obviously, we're going to talk about doing it in 6 months, hopefully a lot shorter than that. So we're going to give Angie just one more second here to finish up talking about the state CPA societies, but go ahead and check your link there, the link in the chat, and you'll be able to find whichever state you're in. All right, Angie, how's that? Did you get the headphones situated?
I have them on, so I'm not sure if it makes a difference or
It
not.
actually sounds much better for me, so I hope that that will go ahead and work for everybody else.
Okay. Alrighty. Hopefully that's better. Okay, so like Andrew said, you all can find your state association and the links he sent you. But a few of the things that we do in Florida, we do student events. We have two really large student events that we do every year. Our Accounting Scholars Leadership Symposium, which you have to apply to be selected to go to that. It's actually coming up June 11th and 12th in Orlando in conjunction with a larger program that we're doing. So that is, we do 8 hours of different sessions about accounting careers, interviewing techniques, resume writing, things like that. And then we also go and do visits where we're going into industry this year because a lot of accounting students are not necessarily aware of the opportunity that you have as a CPA working in industry. So that's part of what we're doing. And we also do a student track at our annual accounting show in Fort Lauderdale every year. So that's something that we do. We have campus ambassadors at, I believe we are up to 8 universities now in the state of Florida that we have campus ambassadors that do local programming on campus. We do panel discussions, all kinds of different things like that on campus. And then we also have YCPA events. So those are open to students as well, whether it's a networking opportunity or maybe a panel discussion or a happy hour. There's various things. So that's pretty much what we all offer at FICPA, and I'm going to turn it over to Andrew now. And if you guys have questions about requirements to sit for the exam in the state of Florida, we'll put my contact information up here so you all can reach out to me and Jennifer if you have specific questions for us related to the state of Florida.
Hey, thanks so much, Angie, for going through all that. If everybody could say thank you, Angie, in the chat for giving us that information. Like I said before, the FICPA, in particular for me, spending most of my career and life as a CPA in Florida has been huge. So definitely check that out and get involved. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about how to pass the CPA exam. That's kind of the whole big thing you need to even get into one of these state societies as a full-time member. Obviously, as a student, you're not expected to have a CPA, but there's obviously a ton of benefits about the CPA, but the whole challenge of it is actually becoming a CPA, passing the CPA exam. And I've got some information that I think is going to really help you guys. There's a lot of misinformation about the CPA exam, a lot of things out there that people say, but I don't really believe are all that true. So let's get right into it. If anybody has any problems, go ahead and let me know in the chat, but I think for now, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so first I want to talk a little bit about my story, then I'm going to talk about some of the myths associated with the CPA exam. We're going to talk about a 6-month plan. Obviously, that's kind of the title of the webinar, but really we're going to be talking about getting this done in 3 months. And I know that this sounds like a huge feat, but when you go through the exam process, you have an 18-month window to pass all 4 parts. If you use that year, or even if you use 18 months to say, oh, that's when I'm going to pass the exam, what if you fail? What if a life event comes up? What about busy season? And that's exactly what happened to me when I was going through and getting my CPA license. And so it's always important to plan for those things. And if you want to pass the CPA exam in 6 months, you really should be planning to pass it in 3 months or 4 months. Okay. Well, I also want to talk a little bit about study tips and Q&A. And then if you stick around till the very end, we're actually going to be doing a review course giveaway. So if anybody that sticks around to the very end, I'm going to tell you how you can enter into that giveaway, and it's going to be for a Roger CPA review course. So stick around for that. So my story. I finished up a PwC internship, and I was working about 40 hours in between. I was working for a company that was actually a client of PwC, and I had about a year until I started my full-time job. And when I was working there, I was also taking full-time master's classes, which for me was about 12 hours plus homework. And I also had a girlfriend, so a lot was going on. But I knew I wanted to pass the CPA exam before I started working. And I talk about this a lot in a lot of the other webinars and blog posts that I do, that the number one factor of your success when you start in public accounting is going to be, did you pass the CPA or did you not pass the CPA? Now, if you didn't pass the CPA, it doesn't mean you can't succeed, But oh my gosh, I mean, it's so hard to go in every day and be excited and motivated and happy when every single night you're going home to study for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. It's hard to keep that up. I know, because I saw other people do it. So I knew I wanted to pass before I started, and I was committed to that. I was on a game plan. I got my notice to schedule, which, this is basically, the good information from it, all 4 sections, and these were the dates I could take it. You could see where it says the earliest you can take the exam and the latest you can take the exam. And so I had to take it between, that October timeframe and the April timeframe of the next year. And so these are the actual dates I took the exam the first time around. I took it October 25th, 2010. I took regulation, November 22nd, 2010, BEC. Then there was a blackout month, right? Every 3 months, one of the months, you can't take any of the CPA exam sections. They grade everything. Everybody freaks out with the scores. And then January 25th, 2011, I took regulation. February 24th, 2011, I took financial. Oh, and I actually did not take regulation. I took audit. Sorry about that. That's a bit of a typo in the slide. So yeah, January 25th, 2011, I took audit. And I was waiting. Back in the day, NASBA used to be even worse with the score release than they are now. And oh my goodness, you should have seen, I was waiting for a month, almost 2 months to get my score, sometimes even longer than that. And that's exactly what happened when I went through the process. We had NTS delays. When I originally got my NTS, it took about 8 to 10 weeks. I took all 4 sections within about 4 months. And I had about a month to study for each of the sections. And that was sort of my original game plan going in. And when I sat down and I took the exam and all of these dates, I thought I would be good. I thought I would be fine. I felt really confident. And in fact, I passed reg, I passed BEC. I even passed FAR. And then I was waiting for my very last score. And I found out that I got a 70 on audit. It was the last one. I actually already went out and celebrated. And I went out to this bar, had a bunch of drinks. I thought I passed the CPA exam because I had already passed 3 for sure. And I was just waiting on that lonely audit score. But guess what? I knew I was going to pass audit. I mean, I was going into audit as a career. How could I pass all the CPA exam sections and not pass that one? And I remember waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and rolling over to check my NASBA score and seeing 70 and just sort of laughing. Because at that point, I thought that I had been done. I wasn't. But I really didn't feel crushed by it, and I really didn't let that bring me down. I'm going to talk about why that is as we go through this. I think so many people put way too much pressure, unnecessary pressure on themselves when they're going through this process. They create the CPA exam as something so much bigger than what it actually is, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what did I do? I actually decided that, I'm not even going to restudy for this. When I took audit the first time, I finished the exam in 90 minutes. Yeah, I probably rushed it a little bit. There was 4 hours. But I decided that instead of, go crazy and study for another month or 2 months, I'm just going to retake it as quickly as possible. And that's exactly what I did. I retook it in about 6 days after I found out that I failed. I found out, I took the exam in January, but I didn't get my score released until late March. And so I ended up taking the next section in early April. I hardly even studied. I really only studied for about those 5 or 6 days, and I barely really cracked the books. And I went from a 70 to a 91, and I was completely done with the CPA exam. It actually ended up taking me about 7 months. And, I tell people to get on a very fast game plan, which is what we're going to walk through now, because this is exactly what can happen to you. You can have 8 to 10 weeks where you don't receive your notice to schedule and you don't know what's going on. You need a plan for that. I failed audit. I could have easily failed a couple of other sections. I mean, audit was the one I thought I had in the bag more than any other section. There were obviously multiple blackout months, and you always have to deal with these blackout months, but I was still able to pass in 7 months. And I think I could have done much better. I know that you can do better, and I know that you can do it in less time, and I'm about to show you how. So before we get into the exact dates that I would tell anybody to take the exam and how I would handle it, I want to tell you a couple of myths, a couple of things that are out there that people talk about and people say, but I did not experience were true for myself. And a lot of people say, oh, you can't work full-time and take the exam. You have to do it before you start working full-time, or while you're in your master's program, you shouldn't be working. And I just don't think that's true. Like I said, I was working at least 40 hours a week, and I squeezed time in. Typically what I did, a typical day for me, was I went to work at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. I left around 5 o'clock, and I went ahead and went straight to Starbucks. And from about 5:30 till about 9:30, I went straight to Starbucks. And I just studied that entire time. Now, if I had class that night, I would go to class, and I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes I would sort of sit in the back and be that guy with his computer banging out CPA exam multiple choice questions. That was me. And, I still managed to do pretty well on my master's courses. I think I got, somewhere in the mid threes in terms of GPA, but I was really focused on this. And then on the weekends, I would study about 10 a.m. to around 8, 9 p.m. every day. Same thing. I'd go to Starbucks completely alone and just bang out the studying all day long. People say you can't pass the CPA exam fast if you have a family. I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that's true at all. And look, the more excuses you build up in your head, obviously they're going to start to plague you. They're going to start to keep you down. You can make up these excuses all day. I did not have a family. Like I said, I just had a girlfriend. I was in college. But if someone out there has a family, you got some kids, you got a husband or a wife, and you're trying to pass the CPA exam, the biggest thing I would say is, dude or woman, you need to get rid of your TV. You need to get rid of all of the little distractions of life that aren't helping you either A, be a good member of your family, or B, pass the CPA exam. And that's really the order I would look at it in. You need to be, a good parent. You need to be a good husband. You need to be a good wife. That's certainly the first priority. But that doesn't involve watching football. That doesn't involve, reading Cosmo. That doesn't involve trolling Facebook for 3 hours a day. It involves none of that. When you're home with your family, with your kids, you be present, and then they know you got to go out. You got to accomplish this goal. And we're going to talk about how to do that as quickly as possible so that way you can get back to spending time with your family. And a lot of people think if you fail, you need to study a lot more. And I already covered that. I think that's a complete and total myth. What happens sometimes is you get a bad simulation. You get a bad string of multiple choice questions. Look, you got a review course, right? You sat down there with Roger CPA Review or whatever review course you're using, and you're sitting down there and you're going through those questions and you put the time in enough to where you've actually scheduled and taken the exam. You know the material, but they just happen to have a bad string of questions on this. Maybe you got a little bit anxious. We're going to talk about how to eliminate that in a second, but you really just need to get out there and take another section. If you know what you didn't do well on, go back and study those areas over, maybe spend a couple days on that, but get back out there and take that exam as quickly as possible while it's still relatively fresh in your mind. I mean, even me, I took the exam in January and I didn't retake till April and I only studied for 6 days and I passed. It's because I bombed a simulation. I literally I was like, I don't know what's going on here. I didn't even feel like I did that bad, but I must have just thought, oh yeah, I totally know this, and been way off base, because I think I got 0 on the simulations, and sometimes that can happen to you. It's a total myth that failing reflects poorly on you. I don't care about the CPA exam unless you pass it. And you know what? If you are totally committed to it, you're willing to put in the time, you're willing to work hard, you're going to pass the exam. I don't care about failing. All I care is the end game. Nobody sits around and, the only time people sit around and share their failures is just to sort of laugh about it once you're a CPA, because nobody really cares. So, yeah, failure does not reflect poorly on you. I interviewed a guy who's a chief accounting officer of a publicly traded company. It's like a $3 billion company. He said it took him 5 times to pass the CPA exam. 5 times. And that was back when it was, you got to take them all in one day, but still, 5 times. This guy became an extremely successful accountant. It really doesn't have much to do with how successful you're going to be in the future. It does have a lot to do with how successful you're going to be when you're going through the exam process, because every day you're going to be going in just completely wiped out. Another myth is, oh, hey, you have a year to pass. You have 18 months to pass. Wipe that from your mind completely. You're done. That idea is done. Just kill it now. Take it out back and shoot it, because I don't want you thinking about a year. I don't want you thinking about 18 months. What a waste of time and life. Oh, my goodness. And not to mention, I have literally seen people email me, they've lost 1, 2, 3 sections. And for those of you that don't know, if you pass one CPA exam section and 18 months pass and you haven't passed all of the others, you start to lose those sections. You have to pass them all in an 18-month window. So I'd rather just not even play games with that. I'm going to be passing 3, 6 months, 7 months max. That's about as max as I want to deal with it. Studying with friends helps. I have not found that to be the case. Look, friends are great. I love them. I got a lot of good friends. But you really need to just buckle down and study. If you happen to study well with someone and you really like it, okay, fine. Spend some time, maybe 10% of your study time going and talking with them about concepts. But you need to really fall in love with this material. You need to snuggle up. You need to get you need to crawl in bed. You need to get that computer out, and you need to bang through those lectures, bang through those multiple choice, and you need to develop a relationship with that one-on-one. Because that's what it's going to be like exam day. There's not going to be anybody you can turn to and ask questions for. And frankly, it's just a big distraction. And it's not just a distraction, oh, I'm not studying enough, I'm not getting through the material enough. You know where it's a distraction is when they're passing and you're not, or when they've got their score and you don't. And then it becomes this whole thing where people are posting, yay, I passed the CPA exam on Facebook, and you're like, I failed reg. And then it just adds this totally terrible layer of, feeling like you're not as good as everybody else on top of the normal stresses of going through the CPA exam. Another myth that is just everywhere is, everybody takes these practice exams, and you should be taking practice exams. You need to take practice exams. But I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding when I say this. So you listen to this and hear this, because this is no joke. I did not a single practice exam for any section I took ever get a 75% or above. I never passed a practice exam. And it's funny because before I went to take reg, which was my first section, I was freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, I took all these practice exams and I never passed one practice exam. Like, how can I go into this exam feeling confident, feeling like I'm going to be able to pass when I literally failed every single practice exam? I got like 67. Sometimes I got the 55s. I don't know if I broke 40, but I can't remember. It's in the past. If I did, I'm sure I would have forgotten it by now. But I never passed a single practice exam, and I passed 3 sections the first time, and I got an 85 on reg. So once I got an 85 on reg, I was like, oh, these practice exams are just there to beat you back into submission and to scare you to say, study more, do more multiple choice. That's just clear as day to me now. And the other thing is that on the actual exam, they throw out questions, and they don't do that on the practice exams. On the practice exams, they just grade you and you get your grade. And so obviously, on the real exam, they're throwing out a bunch of the questions because they're testing them for new versions of the exam and whatnot. So the truth of the matter is, the biggest hurdle in the whole CPA exam process is you and your mental state. The material's really not that hard. If you're getting a review course, everything you need to know is in there. You've got a degree, you're a smart person, you're going through you're going through this whole process, you can do it. But most people, they get stuck in their minds. And this is what I like to tell people, look, it's just like a fraternity or a sorority. In order to get in, they're running you through a series of confusing steps, and they're testing you to the breaking point. I mean, if you are someone on this webinar that has not tried to apply for the CPA exam, I mean, that alone is like a complete mess. Like, it's like, okay, you got to pick a state, you got to fill out all these requirements, you got to send in all these forms, you won't hear back for weeks. It's this complete challenge, and they're testing you to the breaking point. Those that make it through are now in the club, and that's exactly what it is. But I guess what I'm trying to tell you here is, wouldn't it be ridiculous if I told you, yeah, if you can't handle the fraternity or sorority hazing, you're not going to be a successful person? It's like, no, that's not the case at all. All of us would, if we had to go through fraternity and sorority hazing, which I believe is illegal. I don't know. I never was in a fraternity or sorority other than Beta Alpha Psi, which I guess is, I don't know, maybe that's just an organization. Anyway, we don't say that, oh, when you go through the hazing process, that's some sort of judgment against you, that's sort of value judgment against you, and we shouldn't do that with the CPA exam. At the end of the day, it just matters that you get in if you want to get in. It just matters that you pass if you want to pass. And you need to realize that it's not the end of the world if you have struggles along the way. I mean, I failed audit, so what? So what? Who cares? I didn't care. I went back, I studied for a few days, cracked the books, went back 6 days later, I was a CPA. So you need to try and pass this as quickly as possible. Don't take your time with it. If you fail, retake as soon as possible, no more than 2 weeks. Failing is bad, but the only thing that's worse than failing is failing slowly. If I fail, okay, fine. You know what? I failed after a month. I failed after 6 weeks. But if I'm failing after 3 months, oh my gosh, what a heartbreaker. After 3 months, I want to have gone through 3 or 4 different exams. I don't want to wait. because there's nothing worse than failing except for failing slowly. I want you to go into a dark hole without your friends, without your family. That's really going to be the best thing for you. Getting alone, whether it's a Starbucks like it was for me, whether it's a library at the university, whether it's your own house, whatever it is, just disappear off the face of the planet when you're there, when you're studying, and get it done. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about what I would do if I could do this over again. And I want to use the January, February, March as an example, but really this can work for any of the 2 months on, 1 month blackout. And the way that I would handle this is I tried to do this honestly when I went through before, and I got a little bit screwed because I didn't get my notice to schedule for like 9 or 10 weeks, and so it sort of pushed my schedule back. But this should be the game plan. And I don't care if you're just starting the CPA exam process, or if you've already failed a section, or if you've already passed the section. Look at the future months and plan it out as close to this type of a schedule as possible. January 1st, I would be taking the first section. So I would already be studying in December. I tell people to put in 3 to 4 weeks to study. If you're going full time, like if you're not working, you don't have a job, you don't have anything else, you're just getting up every day and studying, you could do it in about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But if you don't, I tell people, okay, give yourself about a month for each section. And this is exactly how I would do it. January 1st, boom, take the first section. You've already been studying for a few months. February 1st, boom, you had 4 weeks in there, maybe even a little bit more. February 28th, boom, you had about 4 weeks in there. That's about a month. And then you have the blackout month where you're going to get your scores. Oh, February, that should say March. No, that should say February 28th. And then you have the blackout month where it's March, where you're not going to be able to take any sections of the exam. You're going to be getting scores, okay. And then April 1st, you should take another section. This is the way anybody should be doing it. That gives you 4 weeks to study each section. That is plenty of time if you are committed to this. If you're doing it every single night, or at least 6 days a week, and you're studying all day on the weekends. And this way, if you fail any of these sections, let's say you fail 1, you fail 2 sections, oh, boo-hoo. Go ahead and take them as soon as you finish that exam April 1st. Any of the ones you take, the one in January, the 2 in February, whatever happens, go ahead and take it, April 7th, April 13th, whatever the case may be, and then you'll be done. And if you fail 2 sections, okay, fine, but you passed 2. And again, I don't really care if you fail. It really doesn't matter to me because you're going so quickly that you have time, you have wiggle room. It gives you 4 weeks to study, you got plenty of time to fail, and I would even get it in your mind. I would give yourself permission to fail. Look, I failed, okay, big whoop. It's not a big deal. I was still able to pass it all in 7 months, and that's with all these freaking delays that I had to deal with. If you're doing this, you'll be able to pass it in 4 months, even if you fail a section or 2. So I don't really care if you fail. I want you to actually get in the mindset of, hey, it's okay if I fail. This was in the plan. It gives you that mental wiggle room, and it takes that stress off your shoulders. All that peer pressure of passing, and Bill, that's the genius that, passed them all in 3 months and, didn't even study, just didn't even use a review course, whatever these stories are that are just ridiculous. For most of us out there, we need to work hard on this. We need to take time and we need to go at it. And we also need to confront the emotional side of ourselves to figure out how we're not going to stress ourselves out and get a bunch of anxiety and, even though we know the material, get so stressed out and so freaked out that we just fail. But you can see here, I'm talking about a 3 to 4 month time frame. Even if you run into a bunch of the delays like I ran into, you'll still be there in 7 months. It's a whole 11 months before this whole 18-month window. It gives you the chance to fail 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times if you want it. And I'm not recommending that for anybody. But you need to hit this hard in a very short period of time. And then you need to get on with your life. Look, none of us are here to just be professional CPA exam takers. None of us want to do that. All of us want to work successful careers as accountants. We want to get promoted. We want to make money. We want to have more autonomy and freedom. And that's exactly what you should do. Nobody joins a fraternity because they love hazing. Oh, I just can't wait to get, beer bong shoved down my throat or whatever they do. I don't know. And, you need to get through it as quickly as possible and move on. So now I want to talk a little bit about some study tips. And there's so many places I could go with this, and I'm just going to hit a couple. And I want you guys to start shooting some questions into the chat here. If you have any questions you'd like me to answer, I'm going to be able to answer a couple questions on the webinar today. And then I will also be telling you how you can get all of your questions answered. I'll answer any question anybody has, and you'll also be entered into a giveaway, and that'll be at the end of this webinar. But for some of these study tips, you know, the live classes, I've been to them. It's really not worth the time and money. The professors that do CPA review, like Roger from Roger CPA Review, look, these are the best people in the profession, right? These are the people that, they are the stars of instructors. I mean, Roger in particular, let's talk about him. He's just got this amazingly charismatic style. And if I just get, you know, Joe Schmo from Atlanta, who's going to be teaching the local CPA review course, they're probably going to suck. That's just the truth. I mean, especially compared to the best instructors out there. They're just not going to be as good. So I want you to, you know, if you want to go to a live class, go in and check it out. But they're not quite as good. The other problem is they're not quite as fast. They're not as effective. You know, when a company puts together a review course, they're thinking, okay, we need to cover this section, and there's the lecture, and there's the multiple choice, and everything is very perfectly laid out in a logical series of steps. And when you go into these live classes, I mean, they're just sort of talking and just sort of, you know, telling their own stories that, you know, you really don't care too much about. You just want to pass the CPA exam. And they're not always that relevant to the material. So, you know, if you want to try it once, go for it, but do it with a skeptical eye. Don't stress out about practice exams, and remember, this exam does not define you. This is not something that's going to define your professional success or your future. Most people that I talk to, you know, with the bean counter that tell me these stories about the CPA exam, it is, to be honest, it's not about, oh, they're not smart enough or they're bad at test taking. I see the most common thing I see with people is that they're getting stressed out by family. They're getting stressed out by friends, peer pressure. I mean, I know people where, you know, their uncle, you know, some random uncle will be at some barbecue and like, oh, well, you know, Susie Jane passed the CPA exam and, you know, she's already done. And, you know, didn't you guys start at the same time? And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just freaking out. And then the only thing you can think about when you're passing the exam is, oh my gosh, you know, Uncle Jimmy's going to be at that next barbecue party and he's going to confront me about this and I need to pass. And all that is just noise that's stressing people out, that it really isn't relevant to the whole process. And Jimmy's probably, I don't know, he's probably like a chiropractor or something. Probably doesn't know anything about the CPA exam, and he's the one badgering you about it. You have to eliminate the noise, get away, and study your ass off as fast as you can. That's really the way that you pass the exam. And on exam day, look, if you don't know the answer to one of those questions, one of the best things I did was I just went with my gut, moved on, and I could come back. But I tried to get through it as quickly as possible. And, you know, I didn't use the whole time on the exam. I think if you want to, you totally should. But I think I averaged about 100 minutes per exam on all the sections, audit, reg, BEC, so on and so forth. And, yeah, you know, for me, it didn't take quite as long. Yeah, I failed one section, and that's probably because I was rushing it a little bit. But if you read a question, you really read it, and you really look at it, and you don't know the answer, you probably just need to move on. Okay, so, yeah, but if anybody has any questions, you know, if I don't get to it, I'd be more than happy to answer these in another webinar. You know, you can also email me at andrew@thebeancounter.com. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help you out. You know, I always am linking people over to the place where you can find all the CPA exam requirements, all of that information. I'm more than happy to help you out with your specific situation or challenges. But yeah, for now, if you can, please go ahead and comment on this post over at thebeancounter.com, 10 little known facts about passing the CPA exam. And yeah, anybody has any questions, you can email me at andrew@thebeancounter.com as always, and I look forward to reading your questions over on that post and answering them. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody.